Hello everybody, welcome back to the Front Mission First OP walkthrough, and now I need to go over how I set up Hans and Gregorio. So for Hans over here, what I ended up doing was setting him up like Paul, as you can see, except, they're just slightly different because, Paul has the very nice missile launcher we got as a mission reward sometime back, and, he's still got his bazookas. And I set up Hans pretty much the same way except with an egret launcher. Let me show you right here. Left shoulder, see that's the egret launcher, whereas you go to Paul and you go to his right shoulder, he's got the PIZ-8 launcher, which does 3 times 22. Okay, so Paul and obviously Hans are the two best long-range pilots in the game. And that's particularly why I have them set up this way. Now, I'm going to back out and go to pilot real quick here and go all the way down to Hans. And you'll notice that Hans also has guide, dual, and switch, just like Paul does. Because that's exactly how their skill sets ended up being. And that's what you need to do because, they can fire a bazooka and then, switch to the other one or fire a grenade launcher, switch to a short-range weapon, depending on your application, how you set them up, things like that. So with the details on Hans taken care of, I'm going to show you how to set up Kong. Now, Kong, obviously, for Gregorio, you want to have him set up as melee because, melee is all Gregorio does. And melee is all Kong does. So, F3 hand rods across the board, get the WS-14 shields on each shoulder, give him a backpack, obviously, the racehorse backpack on everybody. And another thing I really need to point out here is the fire control system in the part system for melee characters. So consider this a bonus detail. So you want to have this antenna, that Russian alphabet CPU, that fire control CPU, because it has 38 melee, 38 dodge, and then 30 short and 30 long. Now, what you need to understand about melee characters is that they need fire control system CPUs like this in order to maximize their melee system capability. Anyway, that's how you set up Kong. And there's currently 3 melee characters in the game right now. You have Gregorio, you have Alder, and you have Mechs. Okay? They're all melees. Alder is a bit of like melee with missiles, so he's slightly different. But one of the things I need to point out is that they all have the same exact CPU. That antenna Russian CPU with the melee and the dodge at 38 and then short and long at 30. Okay? You need that on all of them because I have found that if you don't pick a CPU that's, centered around just melee and dodge, they're going to have a harder time leveling up their skills in the arena. Okay? And I found that out the hard way when I was using the Rito fire control system on them previously. And I'm going to go all the way back out to the pilot status to show you guys, just as an example so you can see all the parts and all the skills and everything. So Royd, obviously, like many of them, he has speed, dual switch, and guide. And a lot of the characters have speed, dual switch, and guide. Of course, Frederick cannot learn dual, and he only could pick from I think 3 or 4 skills, so I gave him speed, switch, and guide. But anyway, what we need to get into right now, what I need to thoroughly explain is that your melee characters, like true melee characters, they're going to have double, they're going to have stun, they're going to have first, like Mechs and like Gregorio there. And then you're going to have maybe some oddballs, some semi-melee characters where they start with stun, they get double, but you can only pick 3 different skills for them. And unfortunately for Alder, he could not learn first, or there wasn't a way to actually get him to learn this skill. So I had to make him a, semi-heavy melee with some missile support, which is why he's running stun, double, and guide. That's just the way you want to run Alder. I mean, maybe I could have made him a light short-range character, but he started with stun, and I had to make a judgment call and make do based upon what his skill set was and what the actual limitations for his character were. So this is how it ended up. But, you know, look at all these three. You know, they have the Antenna CPU that's focused on melee and dodge. You know, here for Mehua, here for Alder, and then, of course, here for Gregorio as well. Same exact Antenna CPU. Just wanted to point that out real quick. That's it for this video, and I'll see you on the next one.